You're probably sitting at your desk, scrolling through endless NAS options, wondering if you're about to throw another few $1,000s into a box that ends up collecting dust. It's a legit worry. One bad purchase can mean lost data, wasted space, or a device that never fits your workflow. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last week digging into the Buffalo TeraStation 5420RN, reading the spec sheet, watching a couple of unboxing videos, and even skimming through the forum chatter about similar 10 gigabit rack mount units. So let's break down whether this particular machine is actually worth the price tag for you. First off, the 5420RN is marketed as a full-scale professional NAS, and that's not just marketing fluff. It comes with 420 terabytes NAS-grade drives pre-installed in a RAID 5 configuration, which gives you about 60 terabytes of usable space right out of the box. For a small to mid-sized business that deals with large media files, think video production houses, architectural firms, or a photography studio that archives raw 8K footage, that amount of capacity can eliminate the need for a secondary backup server for a while. The fact that the drives are already in RAID 5 means you get fault tolerance without having to spin up a separate hardware RAID controller. One drive can die, and you won't lose any data, and the system will rebuild automatically when you pop the new one in. Now, the fast data transfers claim hinges on that native 10 GB port. In real-world testing, moving a 100 gigabytes video project from a workstation to the NAS settled at around 950 megabytes per second, which is close to the line rate you'd expect from a dedicated 10 GB link. If your office network already runs copper Cat 6A or fiber to the switch, you can actually leverage that speed without buying an extra network card. The catch is you need the rest of the network to keep up. A typical gigabit LAN will bottleneck the transfer, and you won't see those numbers. So, the high-speed port is a real advantage, but only if you've already invested in a 10 GB infrastructure or are willing to do so. Security and data protection are baked into the firmware. The device uses 256-bit iSCSI full disk encryption, which means the drives themselves are encrypted at rest. That's a solid feature for any business that must comply with data privacy regulations. The snapshot capability is another practical perk. You can schedule hourly snapshots of critical folders, and if a user accidentally deletes a file, you can roll back to a previous version within minutes. It's not a substitute for a proper offsite backup, but it does add a safety net that many entry-level NAS units lack. On the flip side, the TeraStation isn't the cheapest way to get 60 terabytes of usable space. The hardware alone costs a premium, and you're also paying for the built-in RAID controller, encryption module, and the 10 GB NIC. If you're a home office or a solo freelancer who only needs a few terabytes of storage for documents and occasional media, you'll be overpaying. Likewise, the device is a rack mount unit that occupies a full ITU slot. If you don't already have a server rack, you'll need to buy one or find a suitable shelf, which adds to the total cost and complicates the setup. Another practical consideration is power consumption. For 20 terabytes, drives can draw upwards of 30 W each under heavy load, and the NAS chassis adds another 10-15 W. In a 24/7 environment, that adds up on your electricity bill. Some users mitigate this by using scheduled spin-down for drives that aren't accessed often, but the TeraStation's firmware doesn't expose granular spin-down settings. You get a simple, idle timer. If you're looking for an ultra-green solution, you might want to look at lower capacity models or a hybrid SSD/HDD setup. Software integration is fairly straightforward. The web-based interface lets you sync folders directly to popular cloud services like Dropbox, Amazon S3, Microsoft Azure, and OneDrive. In a scenario where a remote employee needs access to the latest design files, you can enable a cloud sync that updates a specific bucket in real time, while still keeping the bulk of the data on premises for speed and security. The downside is that the cloud sync isn't as feature-rich as a dedicated third-party backup solution. You can't version files beyond the basic snapshots, and you'll have to manage API keys manually. So who should actually buy this? If you run a small media production house with multiple editors, a design firm handling large CAD files, or a research lab that generates terabytes of data daily, the The 5420RN gives you a ready-made, high-capacity, and high-speed storage backbone. The pre-installed RAID 5 array and encryption mean you spend less time configuring and more time getting work done. If you're already on a 10 GB network, you'll see the performance benefit immediately. On the other hand, if you're a solo creative who mostly stores documents, photos, or occasional video projects, you'll likely get more bang for your buck with a 2-bay NAS that runs on gigabit Ethernet and uses lower capacity drives. The same goes for startups that are still